the fight they had between them was just epic fight. Yeah. And the best part of it, look, it was a definitive ending also. Not, nothing against Deontay. He put everything out there. He put Tyson Fury down twice. There was some stuff, and we can talk about that as far as the count and everything. But just overall, that was what world title heavyweight boxing should have been.
Yeah, I have to go back to reiterate what you just said, and because I was saying this a while back after the Usyk and Joshua fight. I said I haven't been excited about the heavyweight division for a long time. And not just one fighter. I'm talking multiple fighters. Like when Klitschko was the champion, everyone's like, "Oh, he's great," but he had no talent to fight. There was like maybe a one-off fighter here and a one-off fighter there, and just there was no talent for him to fight, and for both Klitschko's guys to fight. And so it was kind of like, okay, they owned the division. There was no excitement in that division anymore. And then now when you have Joshua just lost to Usyk, and then you've got Wilder, losing to Fury, but then you've got Anthony Ruiz in there as well. Sorry, not Anthony.
Andy.
Sorry,
Andy Ruiz Jr.
I did that the same.
It's all right.
Andy Ruiz. I did it last week.
You're getting that Josh, Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
Anthony Ruiz, same thing.
You've got all these fighters now that are all intermixed. You got Chris Ariella. There's a couple other guys that I'm missing.
Chris is far out. Okay, let's take a look. If you're going to talk about the great fighters, if I was going to list them right now,
yes,
obviously Tyson Fury is number one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt. You got to put Usyk is number two. All right, he's got the title. He deserves it. He's at number two. The real question is, who do you put at number three? Is it Anthony Joshua or is it Deontay Wilder? I'm going to put Anthony Joshua at number three. Okay, hold on. This is why I'm saying you could intermix it, and I'm okay either way. But I will say that at least Anthony Joshua, Deontay's had 2 losses. He's had 1 draw, 2 losses, all to the same guy in Tyson Fury. No, nothing to feel bad about there. But he hasn't been able to get it back, where at least Anthony Joshua, when he first lost to Andy Ruiz, he was able to get it back. So he came back and he got that loss. He avenged that loss, came back, got that, and then came in and he lost to Usyk now. And they're going to have a rematch, and we'll see what happens there. So that's the only reason I'm saying I'll put Joshua at number 3 and Deontay right now at number 4. But then you can take a look, and as you go down the list, you got to put, I think Dylan White is the guy who's sitting in the position that you got to say, okay, White is he's the next one. I think he's like the number 1 with a couple of the sanctioning bodies. So we'll see what happens there. But all right, I would put Andy Ruiz probably behind him. You have, and this is the one that's tough for me, is Louis Ortiz is a stud.
Yep. Yeah.
But he's old, and it's really, I look and it's like, he's just got years on him and stuff, but man, the guy can still fight, and he's got fucking power in his hands, and he's tough, and you got, you
look at his performance against Wilder the first time they fought.
Yeah, he had Wilder in trouble in that fight. He was winning that fight.
He was winning that fight, and then he got knocked out. So, I think it was the beginning of the 12th, right? He got knocked out, maybe the 11th, but I think it was the 12th. But
and I mean, you got Joe Joshua, you got a couple of guys out there, that are, but the top, 5, 6, 7, I would say that's close to what it is. But there is talent there, and there's a lot of ways for it to go.
But that's my point. My point is that there hasn't been this much talent in the heavyweight division in a long time to actually have a conversation where, hey, there's fights in here that could be fun fights. Like Andy Ruiz, he's in that mix, in there. But then I'd like to see Joshua and Wilder fight. Both coming off losses. Yeah. I'd like to see that fight happen. Joshua's gonna fight.
Eddie Hearn isn't gonna let Joshua fight
and
Wilder,
that's the thing, though. But Usyk's going to probably beat Joshua again. And if you want to talk about that he got the win back from Ruiz, he got the win back. But you also look at what he did. What he did to himself, he sabotaged himself.
But that's not on Joshua. That's on Ruiz.
No, I agree. But it's not like as if Joshua went out there and had a great performance. He did just enough to win the fight, was touching him with the jab, kept the distance. Ruiz just didn't train for the fight, and it showed right off the bat. There was no energy. He was heavier than he should have been.
Oh, wait.
He was living the championship lifestyle off of the amount of money that he made from the first fight, and he knew he was going to get paid the second fight, and he laid an egg. I think he's lost weight now since then. He's gotten better. He looks in phenomenal shape. His fight with Chris Arreola was a good fight. They both were dogs. Chris is older as well. Chris has been through a lot of wars. He hasn't been the same fighter since he was younger, but he's still talented.
Klitschko.
Yeah, he's still talented though. That's the thing. And then they had rushed him along for that Klitschko fight because during that time in the boxing scene, Chris was headlining some of the fights that a guy that I used to train in his conditioning was Ricardo Cortez. And they were pushing him and pushing Chris Arreola to get to the top. Then they just rushed him along too fast. He wasn't ready for Klitschko. And so when you see this mix-up of fighters in the heavyweight division is finally I'm like, wow, I'd love to see that fight and that fight. Oh, I'd love to see that fight and that fight. And you start getting these fighters all mixed in. Because, I really believe that Deontay Wilder and Josh would be a good fight, but I also think Wilder,
would be a great fight.
He's got the power though to touch. If he touches him, I think it's over. But Joshua's got the athleticism to stay on the outside, stick and move. He's got a good jab. Wilder runs right into jabs.
Okay, hold on. Do you think that just looking at it, Anthony Joshua, do you think he's harder to hit than Tyson Fury?
No, I don't think so.
And that's. And that's my point. I think Deontay Wilder gets to Joshua. I think Deontay Wilder beats Joshua. I know that I
agree.
Joshua ranked. If I was going to do that ranking, and the only reason I said it is because he got his back, and it's so close as far as their last loss. But either guy can be put in that place, and then you look and you go, look at Usyk against Deontay Wilder. He might not want that fight.
No,
okay, Usyk is not that big of a guy, and speed wise and everything, he might have a little bit on that, but the length and everything is going to cause him problems, and the power is definitely going to cause him some problems. So, Wilder's right there. He's just got, he's got that guy right now. When you're looking at the foe, he's got that guy in Tyson Fury that is just that one that it's a hard matchup for him based upon size, also based upon. Look at these guys are like fucking War of the Gargantuas. Mm-hmm. Okay, 6'7", 6'9". We're not. You can go back in history of heavyweights. Heavyweights were not even close to this size, and these guys are athletic, and that's why I look at Tyson Fury and the amount that man moves for a 6'9", 270-pound fighter, and he doesn't get tired. He is amazing, just amazing.
Well, I also felt like the difference in this fight, I was concerned when Wilder went up to 238. I was like, that's not good. You put it on,
not normally.
You put it on kind of fast. But I felt like that was the difference in him having he had a good performance. It just wasn't enough. I thought he did better. And the reason why I thought he did better is because of the weight. You want to know why the weight was effective? It's because if you watch the first two fights, what did Fury do? He got into the clinch, started putting his head down, started carrying his weight the whole time.
That neck.
Cluffing the neck, pulling his head down, getting to the front headlock position, and making him carry the weight. Yep. And at 215, 218, which Wilder was, that has an effect on you. Yes. Carrying someone of the size of Tyson Fury over and over and over. He was doing that, say 7 to 10 times a round, especially as they got more tired. Yeah. It was easier for him to get Wilder's head down. And then that became more of an effect of just exhausting him out. So now when he put the weight on, he was able to come in. He was able to hold his head up right. He was able to stay close and clinch. He just leaves himself open in some exchanges, but he can never count him out because he's got the X factor. And the X factor is that power that he possesses in his hands. Yep. And when he dropped Tyson twice, I want to say it was in the 5th round. I can't remember. Sorry, guys. CTE. But I think it was in the 5th round. He had dropped him twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was great. I'm like, I understood the count was a little slow because Wilder was bouncing around and moving.
Let's talk about that. Do you think that Russell Mora did something wrong there?
No, I don't think he did.
Absolutely not. He did the exact right thing. In fact, look, I did boxing, and I know Russell Mora very well, and he's a fantastic referee. He's come up. He's taken his time. They've done a great job with him in Nevada. But when you're in the back with the fighters, one of the things that you will talk about is the knockdown. And you will tell your fighters, both of them, and you will have their trainers there, and you will go over the knockdown scenario. You say, look, if you knock your opponent down, I expect you to step away and go to the furthest neutral corner there is from where I and your opponent are at. I will be giving your opponent a 10 count. If he gets up before I reach the 8, it will be an 8 count. But I promise you, during that count, I am going to look back to make sure that you are where you are supposed to be. If you're not, I'm going to stop the count and I'm going to point you back to where I want you to be. And until you get there, the count will stop, and that will only give your opponent time to recover. So be where you're supposed to be. And the real reason you're doing this, and you'll see fighters do it all the time, go back to early boxing. Go back to like Jack Dempsey, okay? And you'll see that, back then they didn't have to go to a neutral corner, and they could actually stand there right over their opponent as their opponent's getting up. And as soon as their opponent got up, boom, they were smacking them again. Well, guys now try to do close to the same thing, is they'll close that distance. And you'll be, we'll say you're towards one corner, they'll close it and they'll be past mid-ring because they're wanting to get in as fast as they can on their opponent. And you can't let that happen. And so you've got to make it to where, okay, I've told you in the back, this is what it's going to be. And if you decide to walk away from that area that you're supposed to be, it doesn't mean like, look at, if you're 3 feet from it, I'm not going to stop the count. But when you are far away from where you're supposed to be, the count's going to stop. So Russell Mora, absolute right thing to do.